Hello, and welcome to the next in our series of finding your first customers. Very excited to be joined by Hind today. Hi, Hind, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you guys for
Good.
having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Hind is the founder of Leap Loves Green, an e-commerce brand bringing better period care products to women in Kuwait, and now more areas in the region, which is very exciting. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that as part of our conversation today. For those of you watching us live, please feel free to ask questions in the comments and we'll get to them as we go. And we'll also try and answer any of them afterwards as part of our newsletter roundup later this week. So, Hind, let's start right back at the beginning. How did you start Leap Loves Green?
It's always funny telling the story because we really kind of stumbled into Leap Loves Green. Initially, the intention was just to kind of have a thing on the side for me to use as a platform to advocate for like more approachable takes on environmentalism, like, things you can kind of do on an individual scale. And because, at least like in our part of the world, this is yet not kind of widely accessible in terms of resources and the education behind it, I felt like I could stand out by just kind of creating a little Instagram page and posting some tips and tricks of where people could find certain recycling centers, how they could, learn how to compost, how they could upcycle some of the items they have at home. And so that kind of where we started with our kind of green angle. And then that really gave me a nice feel for the market after a couple of months where I, had a good handle and a good sense of what brands were available, what products were available, and what gaps were also in the market. And of course, and it didn't take long for me to realize that sustainable period care was a huge gap that no one was filling. And it really had me thinking of, it really never occurred to me even like prior to that was an issue until I realized that we were very kind of limited to whatever was available on the shelves at the grocery stores. And so through a really, crazy coincidence on a trip to Australia, I came across this brand Suno, shot them an email. I was really taken by the brand and just like what it was about through and through. It's very much a social enterprise while also being like a really great thriving business. And I felt like it had a lot of potential here in Kuwait. So shot them an email, met with the founder. Coincidentally, we were like in the same neighborhood, had brunch, and it's been history ever since. I flew back with some Suno products, really great demand, and we've just kind of kept growing in this domain ever since.
Incredible. And was Suno only available in Australia at the time? Was that where they were selling, or were they selling in other markets?
They are an Australian-based brand, so they're predominantly available in Australia. I think they had a few vendors in Hong Kong because, they also kind of manufacture there. So it made sense that they had some that are kind of closer to the vicinities of where they were actually being produced. But I think we were pretty much the first to bring them into the Middle East, at least.
Pretty amazing and incredible that kind of came out of a really chance encounter.
Definitely. It was fate. I mean, ever since I've never really had a similar experience with any other supplier. So I really do believe there was something special there. And to this day, they're the, brand that we've grown together with most. And it's the brand that's kind of nearest and dearest to my heart. So it's crazy how things have kind of evolved since then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so talk to me about the timeline. When did you sort of first launch your kind of Instagram green guide focused on kind of the broader sustainability tips, and when did that transition to the kind of more sustainable period care focus?
I'd say we kicked off I keep speaking in plural, but it was pretty much me at the time. We kicked off in 2019. I want to say like, March 2019 probably. And then towards the end of that year, it had shaped into like an online business, but still very much very kind of broad in what it offered. Period care was one of the offerings, but there were many others as well that pertained to like household items, personal care. It was very kind of generic.
Yeah.
But I would just had an eye out for like innovative, sustainable products. That was my only kind of
Yeah.
niche or criteria. And then I'd say closer into 2020 is where I wanted to kind of start, polishing up what we started to look like. So I wanted
Mm.
to really kind of clean up the brand. I wanted to work on its branding, just kind of give, Leap a new feel. And by 2021, we really had that more established, cohesive look to us.
Yeah.
I was able to kind of, yeah, be able to really kind of showcase something cohesive and presentable, and it wasn't something that felt very ad hoc and made very quickly. And then I think it's into 2021 where I really had these considerations of shifting into period care specifically because I had the numbers at that point to really look back at and see what was performing best, and I had the enough kind of engagement with my audience
Mm.
and the customers to see what they were interested in most. And so I
Yeah.
felt, yeah, it was only around kind of 2021 where we shifted into that domain and carried on since.
Yeah. And you obviously sell direct to consumers through your own e-commerce website, but you also stock with several retailers as well, right?
Right. So I'd say, yeah, end of 2021 is where we also not only operated as an online store, but also as an official distributor
Yeah.
for Sumo. And so that's, yeah, been another kind of side of the business. And
Yeah.
only recently have we expanded into the UAE and hopefully other countries in the region.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty incredible over such a short period of time as well, isn't it? How have you found that journey? Because going from, presumably that was quite a new world for you in terms of, you'd not necessarily done that role in another business before, so you're experiencing it all for the first time. Did you have
Definitely.
people to turn to for support, or were you just kind of gut
I
feeling your
mean,
way through?
I feel like having an online business is one of the greatest uh, advantages. I mean, everyone is kind of turning towards e-commerce. There are so many resources available online. Everyone's showing you how to do it,
Mm.
how to improve it, how to scale it. But at the same time, it's also very, very unique and different to every
Mm.
product, market, audience, and it's just very kind of contingent on way too many things to really have like a blueprint to follow.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of trial and error for sure. And I try to be kind of, I remind myself of that. It's that like this is very kind of uncharted territory, both for myself and for so many other entrepreneurs in the field. And so I really need to kind of be kind of gentler with myself when it comes to kind of making mistakes and taking risks. And sometimes they'll work out and sometimes they won't. And sometimes, a
Yeah.
TikTok will help kind of make enough sales for
Yeah.
for 2 months ahead of time. So, it's a really spontaneous in a way. There's really no kind of exact science
Yeah.
yet that I at least found. But I'm
Yeah.
very much enjoying its journey and kind of seeing what it brings. It's quite a learning experience, and it's very, very, um, yeah, it's very rewarding to be able to connect with so many people, online.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of your growth, I suppose, has come from your Instagram community, right? That you've had since the very beginning and has kind of evolved with you.
Yeah,
And you yourself are quite a formidable content creator, and still do it all yourself, right? Um,
more or less.
which is a pretty mean feat. But how what do you think has been so successful about that? I mean, is it about your understanding of your audience and being able to connect with them? Was there an opportunity to tap into something new?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, I'm no business major and I'm very kind of new at this, so I'm no expert, but I question this idea of finding your audience or like creating your audience and then attracting them. I feel it's more like building your brand and then the right people are just going to come your way anyway.
Mm.
Um, so that's how I feel Leap kind of came about, is just we were very true to the message, the voice, try to stay consistent and you know, true to that. And I felt like the community that, you know, started forming around it was basically one that aligned with what we were about, and it just kind of made sense that
Yeah.
way. Um, so because the sustainable period care market is very, very new here, I try to find different ways to talk about it or market it indirectly. And a lot of it is done through Reels. So I don't pitch myself as a healthcare expert or anything of the kind. I'm simply a woman who has periods, and I help kind of reflect that reality through the Reels and through the content that we post. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel that's what really kind of gets to other consumers, particularly women who follow
Yeah.
us, because I feel in a way they almost see themselves, and if they see a brand that kind of gets them, or a brand that kind of understands the day-to-day experiences of, you know, hiding your pads at the bottom of a grocery cart, or, you know, the period experience at the workplace, it makes it that much more relatable, and it definitely adds that kind of level of trust with the brand. And so I feel that's the storyline we kind of continue to carry that has helped build the community the way it has to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally see that. And I think there's a real level of authenticity that comes across with that as well, which has always been a huge part of your brand, right? And as you say, you're not trying to be an expert in the science of all this stuff. It's just about the realities of being a woman and having periods
Right.
and kind of sharing that experience with people.
Exactly. Again, also being like very delicate about it. You don't want to be this like loudmouth activist that's like trying to shove this
Yeah.
agenda down people's throats. It's just, you know, we're here. It's an inclusive space. If you're ready to jump on this journey, wherever you are, you're more than welcome to join us. If not, you know, we're here whenever you are. So it's kind of really
Yeah.
keeping it very kind of casual in that sense.
Yeah. Nice. And what about some of the challenges you faced on this journey so far, whether that's to do with getting your store up and running in the first place, or whether it's maintaining that Instagram community as your kind of core acquisition channel or retail
Yeah.
distribution?
Um, I feel again like really uncharted territory for me, and then also the period care market is more or less non-existent. The sustainable period care market, at least, is pretty much
Mm,
non-existent here, and um, it's only recently that I'm looking back and realizing just how much Leap has kind of pioneered this market itself. So there's a lot we're still kind of figuring out. Again, you know, finding that red line of what is um, relatable and what is insensitive to the public
mm,
when it comes to talking about periods is still a very kind of, you know, delicate line that I'm still learning and still trying to tread carefully.
yeah,
And I feel like messaging is also one, you know, it's very kind of challenging to find the way to talk about periods that is culturally sensitive and culturally appropriate um,
mm,
to, you know, the region. So I feel like these have been the two most, um, these are the kind of two areas that have been most challenging, because these are the areas where we sometimes um, kind of overstep in and then, you know, find the backlash. But once
yeah,
they're kind of fine tuned and once we get them right, it's usually a lot more well received.
yeah, absolutely. And so, how did you overcome that? Was that just a kind of constant process of iteration over time to kind of get to what worked and kind of treading carefully?
Yeah, well, there was definitely this trial and error. You know, you just post and see how it was received, and
Mm,
you'd learn what was sometimes too much and what was tolerated, and you know, people kind of were able to laugh with you about. And then also, most recently, when we had our first kind of pop-up event, putting ourselves out there as an online store. You know, we really don't really engage with anyone in person. It's very rare for us to do that. But being able to put ourselves out there in a physical space and interact with some of our customers, some, you know, new passerbys, was really really helpful to get a feel for the market and get a feel for how we are perceived, and be able to kind of gauge people's body language, really listen to their questions, their concerns. It gives you a lot of insight as an online store.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to chat to you about actually was packaging, because it strikes me as something that you put a lot of time and consideration into,
Yeah.
the packaging of the products themselves, but also, like the the way they're delivered and the kind of PR packages that
Mhm.
you've done in the past. Like, that's such a big part of your brand, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. I take branding very, very seriously, and it's very kind of close to my heart. One really exciting kind of collaboration we've had over packaging. I actually have a few samples here. So this is Suno's packaging. What they do is basically dedicate half of their box space to feature artwork by women artists. And so what we wanted to do was not only feature artwork by Arab women artists, but also have like the copy available in both languages, English and Arabic. And so that's really kind of helped, add this angle of representation through our products with our customers, and just kind of make it a little less foreign, but while also making it a lot more discreet and decorative at the same
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And then, yeah, putting a lot of attention into how our products are presented is a really big part of what we try to do, because, again, when talking about periods and when talking about the shame and stigma that comes along with them, um, it really helps us reimagine how we perceive our period experience when they start to really look different and have a very
Yeah.
kind of different aesthetic to what we were kind of conditioned to be ashamed of. And
Yeah.
that is, chunky, hyper feminized, floral pads and
Mm,
uh, packaging. So this really kind of we hope, puts people in a much more kind of comfortable position to have their boxes on displayed in the bathroom counter, or be able to kind of comfortably carry their pads around in a grocery store. Um, and yeah, not
yeah.
feel like they're dealing with something that needs to be kind of put away or hidden, but rather something that's
Yeah.
really decorative and celebratory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love how all of those elements kind of build back up to that notion of just celebrating, you know, being a woman, and the fact that we're able to celebrate women as part of the experience is just such a really nice connection.
Right.
Um, and because actually this kind of leads quite nicely onto my next question, because I know that some of that thinking came from kind of research that you had done, kind of helped you really understand and get to grips with that discreteness that people cared about, and that how that led to some of those decisions that you made. How else
Yeah.
has kind of data and customer research played a role in how you make decisions?
Um, I feel one thing that really helped me, and this is something I learned from the previous job I had before kind of going full time into Leap. I worked at a tech startup, and I was, a joker. What's the phrase? A joker for all cards, or a cards jacker for all trades, or something along those lines,
Yeah, jack of all
right?
trades, master of none. Yeah.
There you go. So I was just thrown into like every department, and at one point I was doing a bit of customer service. And I remember the founder telling me to do things that don't. We're just starting up, um, and we had a handful of like customers every day that we had to kind of deal with, and so he kind of encouraged me to go that extra mile, do things that don't scale with these customers,
Mm,
and let's like really win them over for this like
yeah.
first kind of early phase of our business. And so that's something I really took away with how I approach Sleep, and how I approached a lot of my early customers is, really going the extra mile with some of them, um, to hear them out, to have
Mm,
conversations, to follow up the next day, to laugh um, about, to share a meme with, really kind of become more than just like a faceless brand to them.
yeah.
And I felt like, these were the things that uh, helped kind of, set the tracks very early on as to how I want to speak to my larger audience as well.
Mm,
Um, through these like very, intimate conversations that I'd have with a group of customers, have that become the voice that we um, present ourselves in overall.
yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. And I suppose the reality is for you that because so much of your community is on Instagram, there's a continuous dialogue with people, right? In terms of engaging with your content, sending you DMs, and you get quite a lot of interaction through that as well.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
And last two questions. So the first one, knowing what you know now and about what you've learned over this time of the journey, is there anything you would have done differently if you were to start your business again from scratch tomorrow?
Over because I do so many other things differently. But I feel like one thing I definitely go back and change was um, being more kind of attuned to what I wanted out of the business and what the brand stood for, than just kind of listening and trying to cater to everyone, and what everyone was kind of. Area that really kind of took us off track was getting into personal care. So be it, household cleaning items, personal care items like, body washes, hand washes, even at one point, really great sustainable deodorants. It really kind of took us off track when we were kind of trying to focus on something else, and it wasn't our strong suit, but at the same time it was what everyone was almost asking for all the time. So I felt like this was a category or a domain we ended up falling in because I was just trying to please our customer base, and I was just trying to accommodate everyone, because I was just being an opportunist at the time without really thinking about what I wanted out of the business and what the brand really kind of mind that anchor and stick to it. Even if you feel like you're missing out on other opportunities, try to find ways to make opportunities with what you have available, as opposed to like just kind of continuing to add on more things to your plate that you'll do okay rather than do one thing really great.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's so it's really difficult, right? Because there's so much noise coming from your audience so often over things they want to see you doing, products they want to see, and it sounds like, oh yeah, so exciting, I could love to do all of these things, but ultimately it leads to kind of a dilution of your message and a dilution of your kind of this light that you're building, the lighthouse kind of that you're building for your brand, and the more you add to it, the more diluted that gets. So it's a really difficult lesson to learn, and one I'm sure that many will find themselves considering as well. And so final question for you, which is, if you had to share, say, 3 tips with other founders on their early growth journey to finding their first customers, what would it be?
Branding through and through. I think it is worth everything to invest in a brand, first and foremost. And I don't know if people really kind of grasp how expansive a brand is. It's not just a logo or a font or a color scheme. It's you want to think of your brand as something that's a living, breathing being almost. What is your brand's voice? What does your brand read? What music does your brand listen to? How does it kind of present itself? What does it wear? To kind of help and just kind of use that to help embody it in every aspect of the business, because it really, they're small bits and pieces, but they all do come together when the customer kind of thinks of your brand name. Everything kind of falls in place there, even though it might seem very tedious when kind of spread apart. Branding by all means, and I know there's a huge hesitancy by a lot of early founders because it can be a very expensive investment at the start, and it doesn't really have any immediate or quantifiable return. But it pays off in the long run for sure. Be it investing in understanding your audience, how to best present your brand to your audience, or how to create a brand essence and a place online. These are all things that ultimately feed back into the business. And the more a founder, especially a solo founder, is kind of involved hands-on with the process, the more you'll be able to kind of upkeep that in the long run and have that match the business plan as well, instead of the other way around. I don't really believe in kind of hiring a designer or creative and then just kind of throwing that in their lap to oversee. But that's something the brand founder really has to need to be a part of, because ultimately it's almost like an extension of him or her from there. Yeah, I think that would be my biggest kind of piece of advice. And we were lucky enough to work with Scale Up, of course, earlier this year. And one of the greatest things we got to do was really kind of, put pen to paper and, really write out what we were looking at in terms of, other brands available in the market, what we wanted for ourselves, and then, doing all of the field work of, sitting down for interviews and passing out surveys, and then listening to our audience tell us how they wanted um, to be kind of how they wanted to experience the period experience, really. And then us seeing how we could align with that. So it was super, super valuable to have that data available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. And the other thing with that kind of that branding piece, and specifically the kind of positioning component, is that, to your earlier point around not straying from your vision, it helps kind of guide you in those decisions, right? And having that kind of clarity and having it committed to paper actually helps kind of guide some of the decisions you make as a business. Does this feel right? Does this get us a step closer to our goal? Does it allow us to deliver on this promise for our customers?
100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Hind. I've loved chatting with you, and I'm glad more people will get to hear your story.
Thank you so much.
So we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.